This is an in-depth look at my favorite book in the Bible, Proverbs. Proverbs is a book put together by King Solomon, the son of David, a man who possessed more wisdom than anyone else in all of history. How do we know this? God says so. 1 Kings chapter 3. In Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask what I will give thee." And Solomon said, "Thou hast showed unto thy servant David my father great mercy, according as he has walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people?" And the speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, "Because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment." Here's the key verse, 12. "Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days," which is code for long life. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem, and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast to all his servants. Verse 12 in Kings 3 sums it. There wasn't anyone born before Solomon as wise as him, and there isn't going to be anyone born after Solomon as wise as him. Solomon created the book of Proverbs to teach men how to obtain wisdom, and to share his top picks for things to do to live life at its best. In Proverbs, you'll learn the secret of how to obtain wealth, happiness, and respect. You'll learn how to protect yourself from people and situations that can get you into trouble. You'll learn how to make important decisions. If life was a game of chess, Proverbs is like a grandmaster whispering in your ear, telling you what move to make next. If you just listen to what it's saying, you'll always make the right choice. Can you see why it's my favorite book? So how do you get wisdom? You can't buy it. If you set out on a journey to look for it, where would you start? That's easy, at the beginning. Solomon wrote in Proverbs chapter 9 that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. In chapter 2 of Proverbs, Solomon says, "If you cry after wisdom and lift up your voice for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hid gold, then will you understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God." In chapter 1 of Proverbs, Solomon writes that wisdom will not answer your call if you haven't chosen to fear God. Solomon says in 3 different places that fearing God is a requirement for getting wisdom. To understand why he said this, you need to become familiar with one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 28. Until you're familiar with this chapter in the Bible, the book of Proverbs won't make sense. So let's read it. Deuteronomy chapter 28. "And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon thee, and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shall be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. The Lord shall command the blessing upon thee in all thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto, and shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The Lord shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he has sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee. And the Lord shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of the ground, in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. And the Lord shall make thee the head, and not the tail. And thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if that thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. But, and this is a big but, it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee, and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shall be when thou comest in, and cursed shall be when thou goest out. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, with a fever, with an inflammation, with an extreme burning, with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, that's code for rainless, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron, that's code for hard like iron. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto the fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the field, the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. The Lord shall smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, that's code for hemorrhoids, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart, that's code for fear, serious fear. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and shalt not prosper in thy ways. Thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shalt not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. There shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed alway, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there thou shalt serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend unto thee, and thou shalt not lend unto him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, from the abundance of all things. Therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor unto the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in the gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which shall not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things secretly, in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. And you shall be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught, and you shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. The Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even! And at even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning! For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way wherewith I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. It's easy to sum up Deuteronomy chapter 28. Fear God and do what he says to do in the Bible, and your life will be better than you could ever imagine. Don't fear God and go against what he says to do, and your life will be worse than you could ever imagine. God can use the weather, animals, insects, even worms, disease, people, and thoughts to bless you like crazy or take you down. If you're a good sheep, it's pretty comforting to know he has all of creation at his beck and call to help you succeed in your endeavors. God understands how to keep men and kids on the straight and narrow path, fear of punishment. Solomon wrote in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 15, The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. This verse sums up the premise of Deuteronomy 28. Either punishment that hurts or the fear of punishment results in making you wise. We love our children and want them to be wise, so when Junior disobeys and gets a spanking that hurts, this keeps the kid on the right path and teaches him how God will deal with him when he becomes an adult. The end result is a well-disciplined, wise young man, and so it is with us adults. God doesn't leave us alone when we're disobedient. He deals with us using whatever punishment will get our attention in the most productive way. When we disobey God, we get walloped with something that hurts for our own good. He wants us to be wise and uses the rod of weather, animals, insects, disease, people, and thoughts to help mold our spirit. Since Solomon had his wisdom given to him directly from God, he's well qualified to teach others how to get it. Solomon says in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 2, He that walketh in his uprightness feareth the Lord, but he that is perverse in his ways despiseth him. In Proverbs chapter 1, Solomon quotes wisdom talking about perverse people that don't walk in their uprightness. He says, Proverbs chapter 1, starting at verse 24, Because I have called and ye refused, I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. This is wisdom talking. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, and I will not answer. They shall seek me early, that's code for earnestly, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord. Wisdom and the cool perks that come along with it, like happiness, prosperity, and respect, will not come to people who don't fear God and demonstrate this by doing what he says. Have you ever heard the expression, don't insult the alligator until you've crossed the river? Hey, we're in the river. If you want wisdom, you can't insult the one that's going to give it to you. Insult God by going against what he says to do, and the result is bad luck and hard times. Some people call this karma, but it's really just God keeping track of your thoughts and deeds. No one is exempt, and no one ever gets away with anything. Jesus knew all about this when he said in the New Testament, Matthew chapter 12, verse 36, "But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment." What he's telling us is that you are being observed and recorded. In this age of the internet with satellites that can shoot your picture from outer space, it's not a stretch to figure out that the creator of the universe has no problem keeping tabs on you and giving you exactly what you deserve. Solomon writes in Proverbs chapter 2, verse 6, "For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding." In chapter 21 he writes, in verse 1, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will." Then Solomon begins chapter 16 by saying, in verse 1, "The preparations of the heart in man," that's code for ideas, "and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord." Do you want wisdom? Do you want to make good decisions? Then you've got to keep God happy with the way you live your life, because he's the one giving you your decisions and thoughts. He can lead you towards the gold pot of wisdom at the end of your personal rainbow, or to the edge of a cliff with no way out. Whether you get the gold or fall off the cliff, it's up to you. In Proverbs chapter 2, verse 3, Solomon says, "Yea, if thou criest after knowledge, and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest her as silver, and searchest for her as for hid treasures, then shalt thou understand the fear of the Lord, and find the knowledge of God." The key here is seeking. You can live a godly life, but Solomon says if you want wisdom, you've got to be looking for it. Gold doesn't normally just sit on the ground waiting for someone to pick it up. You've got to mine it. Dig deep. If your heart is set on finding wisdom and you're willing to put in the time and effort, Solomon says God will make sure you find it. Wisdom isn't like a birthright. This is something you get by first desiring, then diligently seeking for. Once you start seeking wisdom, God allows you to understand how important it is to fear him. If you fear God and are seeking wisdom, he gives it to you. The 3 keys to getting wisdom. Let's review these. Number 1, seek wisdom. First step towards getting wisdom is to start looking for it. Become a seeker. Number 2, fear God. Once you start looking for it, God will allow you to understand that fearing him and being seriously afraid of what he'll do to you if you go against what he says to do is a requirement for obtaining wisdom. Key 3, live a life God would be pleased with. If your life is godly enough to become eligible for obtaining wisdom, and you're diligently looking for it, you're guaranteed to find it, along with understanding and knowledge. Most people want wisdom but have no clue as to what to do to get it. Kind of like wanting to play baseball, but you have no idea how the game is played. You might get up to bat and think the pitcher is going to throw you balls all day long until you hit one. You might have heard that everyone gets 3 strikes, but in your case they'll make an exception and give you 4. It's not going to happen. You might think that if you get a hit and no one catches it, that should count for something even though it's a foul ball. It won't. Or if you scream loud enough at the umpire, he'll reverse the decision to call you out. Forget it. He's not going to budge, and you'll probably get thrown out of the game. The rules to the game of baseball are set in concrete. Nothing you do is going to change that. The rules to obtaining wisdom are set in concrete too. If you want God to bless you with wisdom, you need to know what the sequence is for obtaining it. I've just explained it to you. So if you're one of the seekers who is raring to get going on your quest for wisdom, your train has already left the station. You're on the journey. The rest of this book will help you get to your destination.